Welcome to Inside Innovation, charting change in higher education IT, the podcast where we explore the transformative ideas, emerging technologies, and dynamic strategies shaping the future of higher education. In this episode, The Innovation Question, our panel discusses what innovation currently looks like in higher education, notable innovations, and potential future innovations. Good morning. I'm Micah. I'm the producer of the Higher Education Congress, and we're going to be talking about Inside Innovation, charting change in higher education IT. So the first question, how do you define innovation in the context of higher education IT?
I'm Rainey Eborn from Utah State University in Logan, Utah, and I think that innovation from my perspective is any type of new idea or an implementation of or processes that involve some type of improvement that enhances the user's experience. I think there's always innovation in different things. It doesn't always have to be a technology one, but usually it's attributed. Technology is usually part of that innovation because we always are trying to improve our processes. So I think that to define innovation is, it can be anything that fosters growth and experience and new ideas. Tim, do you agree with me?
No, that's great. I'm Tim Winders from Purdue University, and I break the thought of innovation down even to a lower level. And innovation is doing anything in a different way. And so we think about, we get stuck in the this is the way I've always done something. So you can be innovative in just changing a process. You can be innovative in changing people. You can be innovative in the way we think about moving forward as a university. And often in IT, we get stuck in the things and the bits and the bytes and the blinky lights. And we only think about innovation in what's that new technology I can bring forward. Whereas often it's innovative just to think about how can we do this differently? And that's innovation to me. Resonate with you, Vanessa?
It definitely does. Vanessa Keenan, University of Texas at San Antonio. And definitely, and I love that you guys said two really good things that you said is processes and people. Because a lot of times we don't involve our students at the beginning of some of the things that we're thinking about with innovation. And I am a really big student-centered person sitting in IT, but I think our students play such an important role in that. And getting those students into what it is we're looking at. When we're looking at new types of technology, getting their perspectives from the start, not bringing the students' perspective in later, but getting them there at the table. And one of the things I try to tell CIOs, deputy CIOs, directors at universities and institutions that if you don't have the ear of the students and the students being a part of what it is that you do, then it's going to be very difficult because then you're bringing them in after you've done some kind of innovation. There's almost 400 student organizations on our campus. Invite those folks to have discussions on some of the things that you're doing. That is so important.
I'm Steve D'Agostino from Fordham University. And I guess it's fortuitous that the roundtable I just attended before our talk today was about innovation. I'm hosted by Olinda, and many of the people in the audience today were here. And I think when I hear you guys talking about this, I'm thinking or wondering if innovation is, I guess, teleological. Is it working towards some end? What are we innovating toward or to? I think also I would say that there's a theory, which I know Tim loves.
I love your theories.
It's called neo-institutional theory, which looks at the impossibility of innovation in institutions. So Fordham University is an organization within the institution of higher education. So there's a range of legitimate behavior. And generally, all of our organizations stay within that range. And the forces that kind of make us do this are called mimetic, right? We copy each other.
Yes.
The other is normative. What are the sort of norms, culture, values? We look to each other to create procedures, ways of describing our work. Metababble.
Metababble.
As Vince coined a term yesterday. And the last one is coercive, right? Rules and regulations. So someone will move outside of that range of legitimacy. It's generally a leader in the institutional sector. And we all watch to see what happens with that activity. And if it's successful, whatever that means, the range of legitimate behavior grows to encompass it. So when we think we're innovating, in many ways we're copying.
Higher ed, we're so traditional, like are vertical, right? We are so traditional. We've been around for hundreds of years. And I always make the joke, and you've probably heard me say this, but we're so traditional that we still celebrate our wins and our graduations wearing medieval clothing. That's what we do, right? We wear our robes, our hats. So think about that. That is hard in higher ed when we're so traditional. We care about our brand so much that we are scared to innovate and we're scared to change things because we look at our peers and we all do the same thing. So I think it's so important that we look outside of just our peers. Like you still do that, but I think looking towards industry, I think is important because we see industry doing really creative and unique things. And I think it's important for us to also look at industry and how they do things. Not completely, but I just think that there's value there.
Yeah, you made me think about something as you were talking about how we're stuck in history. We all demonstrated through COVID that we're able to be agile and shift our focus. We can change very rapidly. But then as we came out of COVID, how fast did many of our institutions revert right back to where we were beforehand? And a lot of what we learned through COVID disappeared, and we were once again stuck against the institutional forces that prevented us from moving forward, even though, to Stephen's point, we had seen the institutional norms grow and change. We shrunk right back to, but this is the way that we do it here.
Yeah.
And so that those internal institutional forces are always fighting against innovation.
And you made a very good point. I mean, when you talked about industry and looking to what industry is doing, we should not just look at what industry is doing, but incorporate them into our institutions, into what we're doing. That's so important because we keep hearing a discussion about the value of higher education and how important that is. Those are the people that are going to support us. Our partners that we make out there, whether it's with our vendors, corporations, whatever, having them to come in, they're looking for bright minds. And we have the bright minds on our campuses. Our students are the future. Having them to work with us, having our students to go out and work with them, whether it's in internships, fellowships, ambassadors, or whatever. But working together, having them to come on campus, and not just with our students, but with our faculty, with our staff as well. A lot of times our staff kind of gets left out of the equation. It's something I think we can really, really do better in higher ed and also see the benefits for that. Folks can see out there, yes, there is a reason for higher ed. There's definitely a big value in that.
Universities are hermetic, right? They're designed that way. After hundreds of years, they're designed to keep the world out. And we find, I think a lot through technology that we can't keep the world out. You mentioned COVID, and I think that's one of the ways that technology innovation finds its way into schools. So we were talking about this earlier in the roundtable. I think I've identified like 3 ways, right? The first would be intentional, technology that's specifically intentionally designed for use in teaching and learning spaces in this example. So think of interactive whiteboards. They're designed to be used in a classroom. And after everybody wrote on them with permanent marker, we sort of rethought that whole experiment. But I think probably the most impactful are not those tools designed specifically and intentionally for school, but those that the learners bring with them. Accidental integration, right? Their laptops, their cell phones, which before the pandemic were banned, right? Because they were disruptive. So I think that there's a sort of continuum from disruptive to essential. During the pandemic, these tools that were considered problematic, we're giving them out. And quickly, once something becomes essential, it becomes a matter of equity and social justice. And then finally, I think the pandemic was unilateral. We had no choice. And I think in some ways that was a kind of a leap forward in terms of familiarity with these tools, but in some ways steps backward because there's this unlearning that has to happen. You have to outivate of the belief that online learning is 15 Zooms in a Google folder. Yes. So part of it is really how do we be mindful around innovation, as you were saying, and more communitarian in our approaches, I think.
I want to backtrack a little bit to your previous comment, Vanessa, about how important it is for student feedback throughout the innovation process. What are some things that your institution has done to incorporate students more?
One thing we did is in our IT department, and I think it's very rare, And we're looking at incorporating it throughout our entire system now. I've met with our UT system CIOs, and we incorporated a interns and ambassadors program in the IT department. So we literally serviced last year. We had 86 applicants into that program. So we don't have a place for everyone in that program. And a lot of times when they come in and they interview, maybe it's not something that they want to do. But we've had students from the HCAP program, and you stop and you think about it, and health. How can the IT department help with health? Stop and think about hospitals and healthcare. All of it is run on technology. So a big part of that has been research, working with those students. They have to put in over 300 hours of time for their internship. So working with them in that point, they're putting together, and their undergraduate students, that research papers, they do 2 a semester, working with our team, our tech specialist team, and those papers are published. So that's one way. We also have students working, we think of a typical student worker in IT as working in the help desk. We have students working behind the firewalls in our infrastructure. They go through a complete process, just like we've hired them on, so they get that experience of seeing what that's like. They go through all the compliance training that we do, the whole works, and then they go out and they're working in our EADS department. They're working with our cybersecurity folks. We have students working in both of our security operations centers, including our huge one down at our School of Data Science. But we've taken that a little bit beyond and worked also with our system. So some of those students also, even though they're in San Antonio, think about it, we're talking about what we can do remote now and how COVID has changed the landscape, and it really did. We started this program because students couldn't go out during COVID to be able to go to these companies to work. So now they're working remote. We have students who are working at UT System. We've had students who have internship with Rackspace, who is a big partner of ours. We also have students who are working with Department of Defense contractors, since we have such a robust cybersecurity program, and they come to us for students. If you have ServiceNow and you're not doing this program, I keep telling ServiceNow, I'm telling a lot of people about this, I've met quite a few people here. ServiceNow also has a program that your students can go through, get badged and certified, and it is free for the students. It has 4 tracks to it. So we have 12 students this semester who are going through that program. And I have one who's already completed the full program and is going for his certification at no cost to your students. So think about it. We spend a lot of money training our staff members. You now are building a pipeline for your students to move right into your departments and your areas, maybe not at your university, but somewhere else in another section that maybe has that particular program. And the nice thing about programs like ServiceNow is it's a platform. If they get that down, they can jump to another platform if it's something different they're going to. And they do not have enough employees. They'll tell you that to actually do that program. So they're looking for people.
I implement a lot of technology over the years because I've been in higher ed a long time, and I've had good projects that go well and then projects that haven't gone so well. But recently, in the last 3 years, I just implemented a student engagement platform to help promote student success, feelings of belonging, because we know that students do better when they feel like they can connect with each other in groups or through sports or whatever. And so I implemented this new student engagement platform, and I actually invited students to be on the project team to actually do that, because in my design thinking training, I've learned that if you have to go to the actual user if you're going to solve the right problem, right? And this was for the students, and so I'm like, the students need to be involved in this. And so it was probably the most successful project that I have ever implemented in my whole career, and I attribute it to the students that participated, because we were listening to their feedback, and they also, because it's the engagement platform, it's a mobile app for them. And we didn't let all the director of student success or the director of financial aid or those people that hold those jobs, we didn't let them have so much a say of what was in the tool. We let the students. And then I've kept it going. So now we're live and we've been running it for 3 years. And I actually still keep students on the product advisory board. So as we're looking at what we're going to do for the next term or whatever, I let the students decide, like, what do you want to have this in the tool or do you not want to have it in? And I found that it's probably, I attribute it to my students that participated. So I think that's really important to involve students, because that's who our customer is. And I know that you're not supposed to say that, sorry, in higher ed. You really are purchasing a credential for your life to make your life better. So you are a customer.
Well, Lainey, I would say clearly this isn't your first rodeo.
Bingo.
I think it was like 1980. I gave my mother a microwave, and she told me she didn't believe in it. I'm like, it's right there. It's like on the table, right? Yeah. She never used it. And so she had a sort of very skeptical relationship to technology. And I guess maybe 10, 15 years later, I worked with my supervisor would print websites all day that he found really interesting. And then about 4 o'clock, 4:30, he'd start to shred them. So I invented this tool, and it's patented. It's a printer shredder. Prints and shreds. So I think what we need to do is understand, I experience this phone, your tablet, a laptop as technology. But I'm not sure that learners today, at least undergraduates, traditional undergraduates, experience it in quite the same way. It's like a refrigerator or a microwave. It's just part of their built environment. It's demystified for them.
Yeah.
We interact with them, and I think 3 generations away, and I'm a time traveler. If you ask me where I'm from, I would say 1976.
It was a good year.
That was a good year. I was 6.
You ever see Invasion of the Body Snatchers? He's yelling at the end of them, they're coming.
Yeah.
I think the examples I heard from both of you are trying to decrease that space to more deeply understand the populations we hope to serve. And I think that sort of points out an essential kind of openness and receptivity, because we're used to teaching them.
Yeah.
But we're flipping the script, or we're trying to learn from them, to invite them into that process, I think, as partners.
That is a great point. I have a faculty appointment too, so when I do have the opportunity to teach, or if I'm working with interns, I tell them, I'm going to learn as much from you as you're going to learn from me. And they'll look at me like, what is she talking about? So during the term, I'll say, and the audience has been saying, bingo, every time I learn something from them, because we are. Technology changes every single day. I've been doing this in the classroom for, I'm going to date myself, over 30 years, but you're exactly correct. It's a two-way street. And looking at some of the students we have who are working on artificial intelligence stuff for defense contractors, I have no idea what they're working on. I don't ask, but they do have a think tank. So in addition to what they're doing for those companies, they get a chance to put together some ideas of their own. You guys have seen Shark Tank. And so I do get a chance to sit in on those events at the end of the semester. And let me tell you, there's retired generals in there that are evaluating what they're doing as a part of their projects. So don't underestimate the mind power that are in these amazing students that are on your campus and how they can change what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think these are great examples and remind us that students are the reason why we are here in higher education. And we're sitting here at a CIO event, so we're focused on technology, but these examples remind us that students are core to this, and IT touches and sees everything that happens across the university. Now, those of you in the audience are nodding yes, and I hope anybody that's listening to this is also reinforced and saying, yes, IT is central to everything that we do in higher education, and the power that we have to influence and shape the young minds, mid-age mind, old mind that come through the university is incredible, and we, through disruption and innovation, are able to help move the needle just a little bit outside of those norms that we see in higher education.
So not being in IT, I'm wondering, so my experience of IT as a kind of an outsider is that, and we talked about this in our roundtable, that you're like a genie, right? You have to be conjured. Mm-hmm. Like the genie cannot rub the bottle himself. And also, I think there's a sort of King Midas problem, right? Everything to gold, really? Okay. So knowing that people perhaps aren't making good decisions, but not feeling agency, to be empowered to participate more fruitfully in these conversations. And I'm wondering if, I just put that out to my colleagues and friends, are there ways to leverage the expertise and the deep knowledge of our organizations maybe more effectively and dynamically?
I believe yes, there is. And I think that you could use, I think that having cross-divisional teams, I do that a lot at the institution that I work with, is even though you're in different departments, like you said, like we are all in different departments, we have different priorities. But if you come together and bring yourself together in collaboratives, like and do cross-divisional teamwork, I think that that actually, and you collaborate and you partner, I think that tends to work very successfully.
What you just described is what the way I defined innovation earlier in our segment is doing something differently, right? Yeah. Historically have been very siloed organizations. We do the thing in our own vertical, right? Mm-hmm. I'm really good at teaching this subject. I'm really good at admitting students enrollment. I'm really good at IT and the blinky lights. Innovation means breaking down those silos, working together in a way that helps us advance the mission of the university in a way that you may not think about, I may not think about in my discipline, but together we tell a very different story.
And that's where that community engagement comes in, whether it's internal throughout the community or external, bringing the external community in. I think we all have a responsibility, and definitely since technology is such a big part of what we do every day, it touches every single thing you can think of. So we have a really important role in bringing our external community in as well to be a part of that.
Tim, what are the most significant techno trends that are currently shaping higher ed? How has Purdue started to adapt?
Obviously, the first thing that we're talking about today is AI, but also everything around data. We talked so much during this week and over the last couple of years around data strategy, data technologies, data scientists, how we can make data-informed decions. Right?
So secure our data, cybersecurity.
Right. So there's so much more. Rini, please continue on because we've got half a dozen here.
Oh, no. There's cybersecurity. I think, like you said, big research computing. If you're at a R1 school, that's definitely the trend right now.
And as we talk about data, in Texas, I don't know if the other states are doing this too, we now have a requirement for our agencies, our state agencies and our state universities have to have a chief data officer. That is assignment. So think about it. It's that person's inside of IT, so that's another budget item. There's a lot of requirements, and so we have to have a team. So some kind of way I'm on that team, probably because I have the HOP policies, and those policies, of course, drive what we're doing with data. So I got selected to be on that team. There is, and I do believe it's a 12-part data certification you have to go through. I've made it through 8 right now. They met yesterday while I was here, and I was presenting at the time, so I couldn't make the meeting. I sent a Teams message to our deputy CIO to say, hey, I missed the meeting yesterday, but I opened up all the documents on my little short break, and I only have 4 more of those certifications to do. Those certifications are not easy. They're
like
pretty
belts?
difficult.
Like belts? Like
yeah, now you just get a little check off that says you did it, and you're done. So I have 4 more to go. I put them on my goals for this year. Well, but that's how serious it is.
I think with your being over online, I think there's a lot of trends there that's technology trends like online learning, virtual reality, augmented reality, all of that is taking off big time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the real challenge in my work is thinking about what we've all been talking about, the human aspects of our work. And I think so as teachers, we focus on process. It's less important the answer than how you got it, right? Show your work. But AI has no real process that's clearly visible. It's efficient. And in privileging that efficiency, it sort of flattens and shortens the learning experience for the students. We expect artisanal responses in industrialized environments, right? We're using these very powerful tools. So I write my Common App essay with an AI, and an AI reads it. And I'm like out of this loop. At least what we're talking about at Fordham is gamification. And I find this term problematic. My son, who's in college, I need a 69 on the chemistry final, and I will get an A. Anything between 70 and 100 is a waste of time. That's gamification. What I'm advocating for is play. How can we just not have an end? How do we use AI just to play with it and have some understanding and relationship with it? Because I think that's essential to have those things before we can integrate it meaningfully into all kinds of practices. But I think at least my experience with AI is a post-pandemic trauma response, right?
Oh, yes.
We all responded very similarly. I think what draws all of us, perhaps not to be presumptuous, to both education and technology is that they're both projects of human liberation, right? They're supposed to make us free. But I think in some ways we can experience our environments, our organizations, and technology as oppressive. I'm in competition with AI. It's going to take my job away. How am I going to teach with it? So I think we need to try to work together to reframe that narrative how we're receiving these tools. How can we assure people they won't lose meaning and purpose?
And one of the things we haven't talked about is, while we've focused on some of the technologies, is the societal outcomes or pressures that we'll be seeing. We haven't talked about equity. We haven't talked about accessibility. We haven't talked about the demographic cliff and future enrollments and the future state of higher education in general. And in many cases, we may look to technology or future technologies to address some of those issues, but we still have the societal, the governance, the regulatory issues that come into play that we need to make sure we're addressing, whether it's through technology or innovation in other ways. So I want to make sure we put that out there. It's another podcast, right? We talk about equity and accessibility, but I think we'd be remiss if we don't at least acknowledge that those are issues that face all of us across higher education and are ultimately going to come down to IT to help solve.
Yeah, when you think about Los Angeles, New York City, Philadelphia, when ChatGPT appeared, they blocked it from their servers, right? So already historically marginalized, financially, socially, culturally, linguistically isolated learner populations aren't contributing to the growth and development of this tool. And I think equity is going to be a real issue.
Yeah, definitely.
What role do partnerships with tech companies play in driving innovation? Hopefully share a successful collaboration. But Stephen, why don't you kick us off?
So what role do tech companies play? I think I mentioned earlier about the hermetic nature of universities generally. They're designed that way to create spaces where people can stop the world and focus on their own project of transformation. But I think that's becoming less and less feasible because we have a technologically integrated and mediated society, planet. So I think we have to prepare the students for their world, the world that they'll live in. And tech companies are leaders in that space. I wonder about, I think about, say, a 5-year-old using an iPhone. Someone mentioned this earlier, that 5-year-olds have iPhones. I think I'm on iPhone 15, is that right? I'm 60. I may be able to make it to iPhone 40. That's a personal goal.
That's a personal goal.
iPhone 40.
So we wonder about this, right? This constant updating, innovation, disruption. Toward what end? So I think a theme, at least in the sessions I attended, was about mindfulness in a way, right? How can greater intention in what we do, greater mindfulness of the impacts, and a greater focus on what we hope to achieve if teaching and learning are projects of transformation. How can we participate in that project?
I think that partnerships, ed tech partnerships, I think they're essential for being able to do what we do at our institutions. I don't think I could do my job if I didn't have technology partners. Because as I said earlier, and we've talked about higher ed, we're very vertical, we're very traditional, and we look at our peers, but we don't innovate as quickly as we should sometimes. And so I think that it's been essential for me to go out and find my technology partners and actually develop true partnerships with them to have the industry help me get things done. Just recently, we're going to modernize our entire student life cycle in a lot of our platforms, and we're partnering with a vendor to do that because we can't do it on our own. We're not a dev shop. We're not a development team. Like, we have little pockets of it, but we're not experts. And so I think the partnerships are essential. And I mean, it's the one reason I come to RTM is so that I can talk to partners and find out what's going on and being able to make decisions based on my peers and what they're doing, but also with the technology partners.
I totally agree with that. Some of this stuff is really expensive. Making sure that it's utilized, you've got to have a plan as well to make sure that if we're putting it out there, that the faculty, the staff, the students are actually using it. To say, hey, we want students to get a chance to use this, to know that technology is there. A lot of times we put technology in place and the students, the faculty, the staff, they don't even know it's there. So having good plans for rolling out this type of technology, I think that's important. A lot of the things that we do, I could not do. Like I said, we had 80 applicants. Where am I going to put those 80 applicants? I can only put so many within our infrastructure. Those partners have been fantastic, stepping up and saying, hey, we'd like to have some of those interns to come out and work in our groups and pay them as well.
Yeah, that's great. I'll use an example and take it back to my initial definition of innovation in just doing things differently. Right? So in higher education, we're very proud of the work that we do. especially in IT, we like to do the stuff ourselves. And at Purdue, we're no different. And as a big engineering school with lots of high-performance computing resources, we liked to historically build those supercomputers. And you're talking about hundreds of computers with a dozen racks or so. And these became all-hands activities, where you'd order the equipment from the vendor, it'd show up on pallets and pallets and pallets, and people from the CIO down to the students unboxing equipment and sticking in the rack and turning the screws and wiring up the wires and doing the wire ties, because it made us feel proud, the blinky lights. And innovation is doing something differently. And so instead of taking these very high valuable individuals doing this work, is turning to the vendor and having them deliver a turnkey solution, where instead of delivering boxes, they wheel in a rack or a dozen racks, and our job is plug it in. And so now we take individuals and get them back to the high value work that they can do around data science, around strategy, around engaging our students. And now we look at the design of the system instead of which screw are returning to make sure that the thing doesn't collapse.
That is an excellent point, and it makes me think about our partnership with Dell when we built our School of Data Science. It's amazing to walk in there and to see what was done there as a part of that partnership with them. And also looking at things like, if you don't have esports on your campus, it's coming. It's coming. I used to say, it's a multi-million-dollar operation about 10 or 12 years ago. Then I went to, it's a multi-billion-dollar operation. Now the last presentation I heard is, it's a multi-trillion-dollar operation. It's coming, and it's going to hit hard. It's also going to hit on your infrastructure. You have to decide how you're going to set that up. The students are going to do it one way or the other, whether it's in their dorm rooms, whether it's in spaces together. So it's better. My CIO, Kendra Ketchum, always says, it's better if we do things with the students, our staff, and our faculty than to have them to do it to us. You want to be a part of what's going on and not be an afterthought for stuff. Dell has been a great partner in coming to look at it. We have an esports operation with Six Flags across the street from our campus, which is great. But eventually we've got to put something on our campus. So now we're looking at a plan. They've been fantastic bringing the partners in, helping us to look at what it's going to take funding wise, and how they can help us to get there.
What are your thoughts about if the academic side, if that's a fair way of saying it, are they meaningful partners in these processes, do you think?
Great question, because here's the key. We all know about money and funds, right? So all you have to do is look to University of North Carolina system, what they're doing with esports. We've had some great meetings with them at EDUCAUSE, as well as the other one is Texas A&M, who bought, I do believe it's a Macy's. That's going to be academic space, and that's what is going to happen. That's the only way you can do this at the level that needs to be done, unless you have a really big vendor partner with a lot of money or somebody who's going to put their name on whatever you decide to do with spaces. But most of those spaces now that are being built as academic spaces, so they can be used for academic. That's what Texas A&M is going to do. And then also the resources utilized as well for esports and gaming and game design. We just started a brand new game design degree program. And I had to laugh. I told someone, I was like, we're doing this. How are we just finding out about this at Roadrunner Gaming? So we pulled those folks in and said, hey, you guys realize for this degree program, if you don't put numbers in the classroom, it's not going to last. Whereas I have over 300 students in Roadrunner Gaming who would love to take these courses. So that's where it's so important that those silos are broken down. What we're developing right now is a coalition for that includes the academics. I invited in the person who's teaching some of those courses for all of us to talk together on what we're going to do to build what this will look like in the future.
Okay. I want to say thank you guys for coming out to Phoenix and spending the past 3 days with us. But I just want to know from each of you, what is it about your experience with RTM that you have been able to bring back to your institution and share with everyone? Rini, you want to start?
Yes, I've actually been doing RTM for a couple of years now, and I think that the thing that I enjoy, first of all, I enjoy learning. Like I go to the sessions and I take notes, and we get the slides, and there's a lot of areas I don't have expertise in, and I love that I have the opportunity to hear things and learn from others. And then I think that I've met vendors here that I've actually been able to go back to my campus and then create a partnership and actually launch things for my institution. And I don't think that I would have had those relationships had I not been here at RTM and made those connections. So I actually love the connections and learning from each other that I take back to my campus. Connect people.
Yeah, I think of, because again, I'm not in IT, and it's strange for me to explain to the provost I'm going to this technology conference. But for me, it's so impactful and informative to try to get a sense of what you see when you look at the university or a college, which is so different from my own perspective. So when I joked before that I don't know what I'm doing, it's a really important, I think to me anyway, place to be. So I don't come in here assuming that I know things, and there's not a lot for me to learn. I feel like I've learned so much being among all of you about what you do, how you do it, what's valuable and significant. And we have a partnership also now. And so this is, I know it doesn't seem radical, I imagine, to a lot of you larger institutions, but for a person from the provost's office to find a technology partner and bring them into, I guess you guys call it the tech stack, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Our
That was
ecosystem.
impressive.
It's for us, that's a kind of an innovation. It's a broadening of the conversation in an attempt to, dare I say, create a kind of center of excellence.
I appreciate the thoughts and insights. For me, as one of the, I think, RTMers, it has been a significant value for me personally, for the institution, both with the business solution providers, the networking opportunities, the interactions with other institutions. In some cases, these events are very cathartic and perhaps somewhat of a therapy session, and just meeting with others and hearing the trials and tribulations that you have in common and that we go through, but then can lean on each other afterwards to discuss, hey, how did you handle this problem? Or having this personnel issue, or we're looking to hire somebody in this space. And to be able to develop those relationships across a very diverse spectrum of institutions. So we have community colleges, we have privates, we have secular, non-secular, we have R1s, we have international institutions. So this very broad spectrum of organizations that, for me at Purdue, are outside of the Big Ten space. And if you didn't know, there's 18 schools in the Big Ten. So clearly in higher education, we do math a different way. But for me, it's really about that, right? We develop these new relationships, right? Steve and I, we've got a couple of publications that we have. Relationships with new universities that we've been wanting to make happen, but until you have that first-hand connection, interaction with somebody, there isn't necessarily a desire or want to make happen. And so while yes, we have brought back and implemented new technologies, new processes, it is often a multi-year process to impact and make change happen. That comes back to our university, right? So hearing what UTSA is doing related to student engagement, how you might be doing something, is going to impact some idea that gets planted in a mind that is going to affect change at our institution at some point in the future. That power is really hard to quantify, and it's definitely there. And I think RTM is a significant reason why that's happening.
Plus, I got a coaster.
And it's a beautiful custom engraved wood coaster, so it's beautiful.
Those relationships that we make here at RTM are invaluable. And I think I mentioned at our very first, when we kicked this off, that this is one of those things where my CIO and team leader said, "Oh, Vanessa, I think you should be the person." That she was involved in RTM for years. And she said, "Vanessa, I think this is one of those things I'm going to hand over to you in your community engagement. And it's one of the best things that I've had to happen to me in my career, is to be a part of this." And so this is about my third year, and the relationships that I've made through RTM with not just the universities, but also all of our vendor partners that are here. I've made some relationships with folks that have gone back and programs for our Veterans Administration. I think my first RTM, I met with T-Mobile and didn't realize they were trying to do something with our veterans group. Went back, got those groups together, learned more about what's going on. We have a huge veterans population in San Antonio, and from there, it's just been fantastic. Every year, I look at this as an opportunity to come in and learn from new partners who are here, but also visit with some of the older ones to find out what's coming on the pipeline for our organization. And I learned a lot here and sent a lot of messages to my team back in Teams about, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Let's look into this. And remember, most of my team are students. I've got a large number of student workers who work with me. So this is great opportunities for those students to actually be a part of this transformation.
It's been a pleasure having you guys here in Phoenix. We'll see you in San Diego in March.
Thank you for joining us on Inside Innovation, Charting Change in Higher Education IT. If you enjoyed this episode, The Innovation Question, be sure to subscribe to catch future discussions on the ideas shaping the world of higher education. You can find us on our website, rtmhighereducation.com, or platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and thank you for listening.